In the far corner of the galaxy, where stars were cold and space was quiet, a small, strange ship named Pebble floated silently through the dark. Unlike the huge, bright warships of alien empires, Pebble looked like it barely worked at all. Its paint was faded, its parts old, and its engines made no sound at all. It had no weapons, no shields, and no warning lights. Most ships would never notice it passing by, and those that did only laughed. To the mighty Tarscani Empire, it was a harmless human vessel, weak and unimportant. So when it reached the edge of Tarscani space, the patrols simply scanned it once, chuckled, and let it go. "It's no threat," one commander said. But inside Pebble, something else was happening. Captain Ilya Tran, a calm, focused woman with short hair and sharp eyes, stood in front of a glowing console deep in the control room. Around her were only 3 crew members, an engineer named Leo, a young data tech named Mina, and a quiet navigator named Jules. They didn't look like heroes, and their ship didn't look like a weapon, but they carried something the galaxy had never seen before, a system called Project Whisper. It wasn't a gun or a bomb. It was a signal, a quiet force that could spread without sound, without warning, and without leaving a trace. "They think we're nothing," Ilya said quietly. "That's good. Let's stay nothing." She gave the command, and Leo tapped a switch. The ship's engines flared gently, and Pebble drifted farther into enemy space. All around them were massive planets, glowing cities in orbit, and endless alien satellites watching every corner of the stars. But none of them noticed the tiny ship. It was like a shadow passing behind a light, too small, too quiet, too strange to matter. Yet Pebble kept moving, and with each jump through space, it sent out a small wave of its hidden signal. First, a merchant station near the border lost contact with its supply fleet. Then a Tarscani listening post began picking up strange echoes in its data, like someone whispering across the wires. The technicians checked everything twice but found nothing. "Just static," they said. Still, more strange things happened. Star maps began flickering. Trade routes were rerouted by accident, and smart systems asked for passwords that didn't exist. The Tarscani Council dismissed the events as glitches, but not everyone believed that. Far away, in a quiet research lab, a Vul data analyst named Seri was reading through system logs when she saw something odd. There was a signal, a repeated pattern in the data that came from outside their network. She followed it back through the logs and found its origin, a small human ship that had passed their border days ago. She looked up the name, Pebble. She brought it to her supervisor, who simply laughed. "That piece of junk? No. Focus on real threats." But Seri couldn't forget it. She printed out the pattern, folded the paper, and hid it in her coat. Something wasn't right. Meanwhile, aboard Pebble, the crew had reached a quiet part of the Star Lanes, an old navigation hub once used for deep space cargo ships. It was abandoned now, with only a few dead satellites floating around it. This was the perfect place to activate the next phase. Jules plotted the course, and Ilya gave the order. "Now," she said. Mina tapped into the central grid, and Project Whisper pulsed out again, this time stronger. It didn't break anything, didn't crash systems. Instead, it rewrote small parts of them. A name here, a star's age there, a rule slightly changed in the background of a law nobody had read in years. It was like slipping a new sentence into a book so long no one would notice, and still the galaxy did not notice. But strange questions began appearing in places of power. Why is Earth listed as a founding trade partner? Why do our ships now auto-clear human craft at gates? Who added these records? No one knew. Records had no origin points. The changes seemed to have always been there, yet felt wrong. Some blamed rogue AIs, others suspected spies. But no one suspected Pebble. And that was the point. The ship had done what no weapon could. pass through the heart of alien space, change systems from the inside, and vanish again like mist in the morning. "Still think we're weak," Ilya whispered as she looked out the window. Space looked the same as always, cold, black, endless. But now, for the first time, the galaxy was beginning to question what it thought it knew. The real mission had just begun. Far beyond the edge of known space, the ship Pebble drifted quietly under a blanket of stars, unnoticed and forgotten by the alien worlds around it. Inside, the crew moved with care and purpose, though even they didn't fully understand the power they carried. Captain Ilya Tran stood at the center of the control room, her eyes scanning quiet screens filled with shifting numbers and soft blue lines. They had completed the first phase of Project Whisper, but now came the harder part, the phase no one had tested, not even Earth's own scientists. The mission had been given in pieces, wrapped in silence, and marked by orders that could not be explained. Leo, the engineer, checked the device again, his fingers trembling slightly. "It's stable," he said, though his voice betrayed doubt. Mina, the youngest on the ship, kept staring at the data flowing across her screen. Strange symbols were forming, alien letters mixed with human code, almost like a new language being born. Jules, quiet as always, watched the stars, whispering coordinates under his breath. None of them asked where they were truly going, they only knew to follow the pattern. Ilya had once asked her superiors, "What is the end goal of this mission?" The only answer had been, "You'll know when you're close." That was all. And now, as Pebble approached a strange region marked as obsolete beacon path, old satellites blinked to life for the first time in decades. They rotated slowly, scanned the ship and said nothing. Mina leaned forward. "They're relaying our signal," she said, "but not to the Union, somewhere else." Ilya felt the weight of that moment. They were not just sending signals into alien space, they were pulling something back. Deep inside Pebble, the device whispered again, this time shaping data into what looked like orders. No one had written them, but they were clear. Proceed to the dead zone near Vul Nexus 9. No one in the galaxy used Nexus 9 anymore. It was thought to be empty space, a forgotten network node buried under digital dust, but the signal said otherwise. "We go," Ilya ordered, and the ship turned without question. As Pebble jumped, the stars around them stretched and folded. When they arrived, the crew saw nothing. No stations, no lights, only space. But the ship's systems blinked red. "Something is here," Jules said quietly. And then they saw it. A massive field of invisible code, drifting like fog, floating across the stars. It wasn't a machine, and it wasn't alive, but it was aware of them. Project Whisper responded automatically, sending out a pattern of waves. Like music, soft and strange. In return, the fog pulsed. Data rushed into Pebble, filling its systems with knowledge too complex to understand. Symbols danced across the screens. Leo stepped back. "What are we connecting to?" Ilya said nothing, but in her mind, one answer came clearly. The mission was never to send a message, it was to wake something up. The signal they had built was like a key, and now the door was opening. In distant corners of the galaxy, ancient networks started coming alive, forgotten systems that predated even the oldest alien empires. Power grids flickered, navigation paths bent, and far-off satellites turned their eyes toward Earth, but no one knew why. Not the Tarskani, not the Vul, not even the humans on the colonies. Back on Nexus 9, the fog of code shaped itself into a path showing a route through enemy systems without alerting any sensors. It was like the universe itself was guiding Pebble forward. "Are we doing this?" Mina asked. "We follow," Ilya said, her voice steady, though her thoughts raced. None of them knew what lay at the end of that path, but something very old, wanted them to find it. As they moved, the galaxy continued to shift. Civilian transports reported time delays. Banking systems reset their clocks. Old treaties had new clauses, and yet no one could find the source. Seri, the young analyst from Vul Space, sat in her lab staring at the same pattern she had printed earlier. Now it was growing, repeating across systems she hadn't even studied. She ran the numbers again and again. They all led to one answer, a small ship called Pebble. She knew now it was no mistake. That ship was doing something vast, something deep. She sent a message to her supervisors. The human ship is rewriting galactic order. They did not reply. On board Pebble, the crew followed the path given by the fog of code. Stars shifted in strange ways. Maps twisted and untwisted. They passed through places that didn't exist on charts, and yet the ship glided forward without harm. Then in the distance they saw a light, not a star, but something artificial. A structure, half built and half digital, floating in silence. "What is it?" Leo asked. The answer came on the screens, written in symbols no one had seen before. This is what remains of the first voices. Ilya realized then they weren't just sending a message to other beings. They were sending a message to history itself. The mission was not to fight or even to explore. It was to reconnect the galaxy with something long buried. And humanity, the species no one feared, had been chosen because they were forgotten. Small, enough to slip through the cracks, curious enough to go where no one else looked. The message had to come from someone no one suspected, someone who had once been weak. Now, with the structure ahead, the final wave of Project Whisper began to charge. It would not destroy, it would awaken, and the galaxy would never be the same. Ilya stared at the screen, the words pulsing in silence. "This is what we were meant to do," she whispered. The others said nothing. The ship moved closer and the stars around them began to change. Somewhere, deep in the galaxy, the old systems were waking up, and this time they remembered Earth. Across the great star fields of the galaxy, strange things were beginning to happen, quiet, small things that no one noticed at first, like whispers in a giant hall. Lights flickered in deep space relay stations. Messages were delivered before they were even sent. Star maps changed by half a degree, then shifted back. For most systems, these were just glitches, unimportant bugs in the great digital machine that kept the galaxy running. But not everyone believed that, in a quiet observatory deep within Vul territory, Seri, the young data analyst, stared at her screen, frozen. The pattern she had seen days ago was growing, spreading through sectors that had never touched before. She zoomed in and followed the code. It curved like a spiral, pulsing like a heartbeat. Her heart raced as she realized the signals weren't random. They were talking. Somewhere in the network, something had woken up and it was sending out echoes. But where was it coming from? Seri dug into old data logs, records no one had opened in years. She cross-checked timelines, station alerts, and system paths. All of them pointed back to one ship. That human vessel again. Pebble. She had tried to warn her supervisors before, but they had laughed. This time she didn't ask. She copied the data, hid it on a secure drive, and prepared to leave. She had to find that ship. Meanwhile, far across the stars, Pebble floated silently between data lanes, hidden behind invisible clouds of broken code and old satellites. Captain Ilya watched her crew with care. Leo was working on stabilizing the Whisper device, which now glowed with an eerie white light. Mina was mapping star routes no one had ever named, using only the strange pulses from the device as her guide. Jules, still silent, whispered numbers that matched nothing known to Earth's science. Ilya understood now that they were part of something much bigger than a secret mission. The galaxy itself was responding to their presence. With every step, The old systems were waking up. These weren't weapons or machines. They were rules written into the network itself long ago. Laws of travel, control, trust, and memory, and someone or something was helping Pebble rewrite them. At that very moment, on a Taskani warship named Iron Dawn, Commander Valak paced back and forth. His crew reported strange behavior in the fleet's navigation systems. Their map now marked Earth colonies in places where only barren rocks had been before. Worse, their flagship's mainframe suddenly welcomed a non-existent human ambassador with full security access. Valak ordered an immediate purge of the system, but the code resisted. When he tried to trace the source, it circled back to the outer fringe, toward a ship so small it shouldn't even register. He narrowed his eyes. "How does a pebble make ripples this large?" he muttered. He didn't wait for approval. He gave the order, "Find that ship, now!" Back on Pebble, the whisper device began pulsing faster. Mina gasped. "The network is sending us locations. It's like it wants us to go somewhere specific." A new map appeared on her screen, coordinates that led deep into the core of the Vul data grid, an area completely off limits. "That's suicide," Leo said. "We won't survive 10 seconds in there." Ilya's face stayed calm. "Then we don't go through it. We go with it." She pointed to the data lines on the screen. "The system wants us inside. We follow." "The path, exactly." Pebble moved forward once more, carried by invisible currents no other ship could feel. Each jump left behind soft waves in the digital space, waves that other systems picked up without knowing what they meant. Slowly, alien ships began noticing strange changes. Clearance codes updated. Docking gates opened to no one. Starports began to expect visitors from Earth who had never been there. Reports poured into the Galactic Council, and no one could explain it. That's when the real panic started. On a high-orbit platform near the Vul homeworld, several AI minds were tasked with tracking system-wide anomalies. They had been silent for centuries, sleeping in deep logic cycles. But now they activated. Their first message was simple: echo, detected, source unknown, response necessary. One by one, the AI began to shift the rules of digital space. They blocked new connections. They scrambled parts of the network. But the signal from Pebble moved differently. It wasn't breaking the rules. It was rewriting the page the rules were written on. Ilya saw it happening in real time. "They're trying to fight us, but they don't know where we are," Mina said, watching as entire sectors closed around them, yet left one path open, almost like the galaxy was giving Pebble a secret tunnel. "Something wants us to reach the center," Jewel finally said, his voice quiet but firm. They had never heard him speak this clearly. "And it's protecting us." In the dark edges of Vul territory, a defense station suddenly lit up. Long dead. Systems rebooted, but instead of alerting defense fleets, it played a message in an ancient language, one that hadn't been used for thousands of years. The few who understood it gasped. It said, "The seed returns." At the same time, Seri reached a private dock and boarded a science ship with only one goal: follow the signal. She no longer cared what her bosses thought. Something deep was shifting, and she needed to see it with her own eyes. As her ship rose into space, she activated her scanner. The signal pattern was clear now, like music running through all the wires of the galaxy. It was growing, echoing louder every hour, and every echo whispered the same thing: change is coming. Meanwhile, Pebble approached its next destination, an old Vul archive station orbiting a dying red sun. The station was locked by codes no human could break, but when Pebble came close, the locks simply opened. Inside was something unexpected, a room full of holograms showing ancient star charts and symbols from a time before the Council. Before the empires, maybe even before the galaxy's laws were written. The whisper device began to hum softly. Data poured into the ship, lines of information that described not weapons or battles, but truths about how the galactic systems worked, how memory could shape reality, how forgotten code could become. Lore, if repeated by enough systems. This was the real mission, Ilya said at last. Not to destroy, not to fight, but to remind the galaxy of what it used to know. As the echoes spread faster, changing maps, rewriting protocols, and reawakening ancient minds, the galaxy began to hold its breath. Somewhere in the stars, a voice was rising, and no one could stop it now. And all of it, every strange shift, every flicker, every echo, began from a ship so small no one feared it. Not yet. The stars above shimmered without sound, but the galaxy was no longer calm. Something was moving through its heart, quiet and unseen, like a storm without wind. The small human ship Pebble, once ignored by every empire and fleet, now sailed deeper into regions no map dared name, following pulses and signals that only its strange device could hear. Inside the ship, the crew remained silent as they stared at their screens, watching symbols twist and shift into forms that made no sense, yet seemed to guide them with purpose. Captain Ilya sat in her chair, eyes fixed on a soft blue line moving across the star chart, a path not made by any known system but forming anyway, as if drawn by the galaxy itself. Mina tapped at her console, her hands shaky, not from fear, but from something else, an understanding that the data coming in was not just from space, but from the past, from a forgotten age when machines and memory ruled together. Jules whispered, again, not to the crew, but to the ship, and the ship somehow listened. Leo worked with quiet focus, checking the power core and making sure the whisper device stayed stable, though it now hummed with a strange rhythm, like a living heartbeat. No one knew what would happen next. All they knew was that the galaxy was reacting, and Pebble was now the center of something vast and spreading. Across the stars, spaceports shut down without orders, transport lanes shifted their paths, and Council ships received instructions no one remembered sending. Some called it a glitch, others whispered about a ghost in the network, but the truth was bigger. The truth was Pebble. On the homeworld of the Tarskani Empire, alarms echoed through the capital's command center, their network maps lit up with red circles and silent warnings, Earth-based access codes appearing inside protected databases, old laws rewritten to place humans in council chairs they had never earned. Their high strategists slammed a fist on the table. Who gave them this power? No one had an answer. The data had no source, yet it was accepted by every system. No firewall stopped it, no AI refused it. Something was making the galaxy believe. Earth had always mattered, always ruled, always led. But that wasn't the truth, at least not the truth they remembered. Elsewhere, aboard her own small ship, Seri raced through deep space, following the signal with wide eyes and a pounding heart. The code she tracked was no longer spreading. It was pulling. Every time she scanned it, her systems bent slightly, as if the signal itself shaped her path. She realized it wasn't just a broadcast, it was a force, a storm, made not of matter, but of memory and belief, reshaping the very rules of the galactic mind. She remembered her first warning, the one no one believed, and now it was too late to stop. The storm had already passed the edge. It was inside everything. On Pebble, the crew reached a strange place, a zone with no light, no stars, just a smooth blackness that swallowed senses and reflected nothing. It was not a void. It was something older. The whisper device pulsed again, and this time the ship slowed on its own. "We're not flying," Jules said softly. "Something's pulling us in." They didn't resist. They couldn't. The ship passed through the blackness like a boat sliding into still water, and then everything stopped. No movement, no data, no time, just silence. But in that silence, the crew heard something, not with ears, but with thought. A voice, not loud, but deep and calm. You carry the forgotten key. You were not chosen by chance. You are the storm. The crew didn't speak. The message continued. The galaxy was built on truth and code, but time buried both. The first voices faded. The laws became chains. You brought the echo. Now the cycle turns. Then the blackness vanished. Stars returned. The ship floated in a new space, one filled with glowing lines stretching across the sky, ancient routes of travel, energy, and memory. And Pebble had awakened them. Back in the normal galaxy, change began faster than anyone expected. Communication. Networks rewrote their own archives. Banking systems listed Earth as their founding source. Military logs identified human fleets as allies they had never met. History itself was rewriting, not violently, but smoothly, as if it had always been this way. The Tuscany panicked. The Vul Council shut down their outer beacons. Fleets were launched to intercept Pebble, but none could find it, because the ship was now beyond known space, traveling along lines the galaxy forgot it had drawn. Ilya watched it all unfold. On her screen, Earth's name appeared again and again. On star, charts, treaties, access panels, she turned to her crew. This is the storm. We are not the lightning. We're the silence before it. Mina looked frightened. What if we go too far? What if the galaxy forgets the real truth? Ilya shook her head. This is the truth. Or maybe the truth that was meant to be before it was lost. Jules added, the galaxy isn't changing. It's remembering. And in that moment, Pebble became more than a ship. It became a story told across stars, a soft signal that passed from world to world, from machine to mind, rewriting the forgotten laws that once guided all life. Some systems accepted it without question, others fought it, but found their resistance, fading like a dream, because the storm was not loud, it did not break, it unfolded. Seri, still chasing the signal, finally arrived at a hidden relay point, one now showing Earth's symbol glowing on every wall. She stepped out of her ship and stared. The machines inside welcomed her with open gates, whispering of the past. She never knew. The mission she once tried to stop was now her only path forward. She realized the storm had already passed, and all that remained now was understanding what came next. Somewhere in the stars, Pebble drifted, silent as ever. The galaxy trembled not from fear, but from recognition. And the ship, once seen as weak, once mocked and ignored, now carried a power no one could fight. The storm had begun, and there was no turning back. Across the endless stars, one question was rising like a shadow stretching over the galaxy. What is Earth? The name now echoed in every system, every fleet database, every trade route, and every AI memory vault, though no one remembered why it mattered or how it had come to be everywhere. Entire libraries now listed Earth as the core of diplomacy, the birthplace of deep space law, and the origin of half the navigation code used across the sectors. Yet just months ago, it was a forgotten blue planet on the edge of an old solar system, with no influence and no voice. The change was not loud, but it was total. And now everyone, from the smallest trade pilot to the highest alien council, was asking the same question. On board the human ship Pebble, Captain Ilya sat quietly in her chair, watching new messages appear on her screen. The Council of High Systems had sent a direct query. Please confirm Earth's role in founding the Intergalactic Accord. She didn't type anything. She didn't need to. The system answered by itself, pulling a detailed agreement with Earth's names stamped in glowing gold, signed by species that had never met humans. Mina looked pale. This is bigger than we thought. It's not just messages anymore. It's memory itself. Jules, seated near the whisper device, stared at the glowing, a pulse of light that now beat like a soft star inside the ship. The galaxy doesn't remember the truth, he whispered. It remembers what it believes is true. Leo stood in the engine bay, watching the quiet hum of the power systems. "Then who's controlling the belief?" he asked. No one answered. They didn't know. All they knew was that Earth was becoming a myth that shaped reality. On a Vool intelligence cruiser, alarms flashed red as entire data sectors rewrote themselves. The ship's AI reported Earth as the primary trade hub in 3 major zones where Earth had no presence. "This is impossible," the data chief muttered. "It's rewriting physical records. It's not just code, it's structure." Their captain ordered a purge, but as they tried to remove Earth from their systems, the ship's navigation collapsed, unable to plot any route without Earth's coordinates. Across the stars, chaos grew in quiet, strange ways. Peace treaties failed because ancient clauses now included Earth as a required witness. Defense satellites responded to unknown human security codes. Even genetic maps in scientific stations began identifying Earth DNA as foundational to other species, an error no one could explain. The storm from Pebble had become something deeper, a question that erased doubt and replaced it with certainty, even if it was false. And still, no one could stop it. Seri, now deep in the edge systems, sat alone in a black observation dome, staring out at a sky filled with glowing network lines. The relay she had docked with now accepted her as an Earth representative. It had opened doors sealed for centuries. She knew it wasn't real. She knew Earth hadn't built these systems. And yet, her access was full. Her scans were complete. She had found files showing Earth's name, engraved in code older than the known galaxy, but they were all wrong. She touched her data pad, her fingers shaking. If this belief spread any further, then Earth would become more than a planet. It would become a starting point, a new origin for all things. And reality would have to obey. On Pebble, the crew faced a new kind of silence. The whisper device had stopped humming. In its place, a low, pulsing tone echoed through the ship, soft and steady. It wasn't loud, but it filled their bones. Mina turned to the captain. "It's not broadcasting anymore, it's waiting." Ilya stared ahead, her voice calm. "It wants an answer. It wants to know if we accept the role. But it's a lie," Leo said. "Earth didn't do all this. It didn't build the galaxy. We just got lucky. The signal chose us." Jules looked up slowly. Maybe it chose Earth for a reason. Maybe it remembered something we forgot. The tension on the ship grew as the tone deepened. Outside, satellites reoriented toward them. Drones activated without orders. AI stations began offering routes only Earth ships could follow. Across the stars, governments scrambled to create new Earth protocols, hoping to fit into the rising structure. The old powers began to fade. The new myth grew. But was it right? Or was the truth being overwritten forever? The galaxy had never faced such a quiet invasion, not by war or weapon, but by belief. On an ancient archive world, the oldest AI librarian powered on, awakened for the first time in 8,000 years. Its records had changed. Earth now sat at the center of its historical wheel. Confused, the AI ran a full scan. It found no source, no command, no virus, just a pattern, a ripple, a whisper. The librarian tried to reach the council, but its message arrived too late. The council was gone, disbanded, replaced by a new order, one that listed Earth as the neutral chair. No one remembered choosing this, but no one questioned it either. The storm had passed. Now came the silence, the kind that came after change, when the world reshapes and no one dares breathe. And in that silence, the question echoed louder. What is Earth? Was it a forgotten world touched by chance, or was it always meant to rise again? On Pebble, the crew received one final message, not from any known system, but from the network itself. It said, "The foundation has been remembered, the pattern is complete. Choose your truth." Ilya stood slowly, her voice steady. If this is our place, we take it, but we must guide it, not rule it. Mina nodded. We carry history now. Whether it's real or not, the galaxy believes it. Jules added, then let's make it true. And with that, Pebble moved forward, not with engines or force, but with purpose. The ship that once drifted unseen now led the path for billions. It did not shout, it did not fight, it simply was. And all who saw it believed. The question of Earth no longer needed answering. The answer was already written in the stars. The stars burned steady across the dark, but the galaxy was not the same anymore because memory had changed, and not just memory in minds, but memory in machines, in laws, in systems older than time itself. Ships moved through space using star maps that now all showed Earth at the center. Entire archives, rewritten without any command, now listed human voices as the first to speak in the Great Council, the first to sign the intergalactic peace line, the first to spark the age of travel. The truth was uncertain, yet it no longer mattered because everyone believed it. Belief had become law. On board Pebble, the little ship that once was overlooked by all, the crew watched the final ripple spread through the galaxy. The whisper device no longer pulsed with light, but instead glowed steadily, like a candle at rest. Captain Ilya sat, still, her hands folded, her eyes on the view ahead, an open sky of stars now listening to Earth. Mina scrolled through messages flowing in from all sides, invitations to lead, requests for guidance, fleets offering alliance. Jules stood beside the device, reading strange patterns on the glass, patterns that now responded to him, like he had become part of its code. Leo checked the engines not for damage, but just to make sure they still mattered. All across space, something had shifted, not only in the stars, but in thought itself. The old powers like the Tarskani, the Vul, and the Narans had lost more than control. They had lost the story. The great empires that once ruled with strength and law now struggled to find their place in a galaxy that spoke Earth's name with respect, curiosity, even fear. On the Tarskani homeworld, the High Strategist stood in silence as his war screens lit up with Earth's seal, not as a threat, but as an origin. He slammed no fists this time. He only asked, "How did we forget them?" The room gave no answer. One of his advisors whispered, "Maybe we never knew them. Maybe the galaxy forgot something it was never meant to forget." Far away, on the edge of the mapped stars, Seri walked through a forgotten station that had just come online. She had followed the signal, chased the truth, tried to stop the spread, but now she simply watched it unfold. The station, once dark and silent, now greeted her in Earth's language, offering files that told of Earth's ancient role in building the first network of minds. She read with shaking hands, records that had no date, no source, but all matched each other perfectly. Either it was the greatest lie ever told, or a truth buried deeper than time. Seri sat in the command chair, and the station accepted her voice as command. Outside, relay beacons blinked in a perfect line, stretching, a back toward Pebble, which now moved slowly through space, not hiding, but guiding. The crew of Pebble had not asked for this. They were not soldiers or heroes. They were explorers, technicians, thinkers. But the galaxy had chosen them. Or perhaps the whisper device had done something deeper. It had helped the galaxy remember. Ilya stood and looked at her crew. "We didn't force this. It happened. Now we must carry it with care." Mina nodded. "The galaxy believes we were always leaders, so we must act like them." Jules placed a hand on the device. The story was broken before. Now it's whole again. We are part of it. And Leo, standing beside the ship's core, added quietly, "Then let's not fail it." Back on Earth, a place that once had no voice in the stars, signals poured in from across the galaxy. Old satellites came to life. new voices spoke in unity. Earth's leaders, stunned and unsure, found themselves welcomed into councils they never knew existed. A small blue planet once ignored was now at the center of the map, not by force, but by memory. The change had been slow and silent, but it had completed. The storm had passed. Now the galaxy remembered, but remembering came with risk. Not everyone accepted the new order. Some small powers resisted, sending ships to block Earth's new rise. But those ships arrived to find the gates already open, the systems already aligned. There was no war to fight, because the galaxy itself now recognized Earth. Every attempt to undo it failed. The resistance ships found their codes rejected, their systems unable to function without Earth-based access. It wasn't control, it was foundation. Earth wasn't ruling, Earth was woven in. The crew of Pebble traveled to an ancient library, world, one that had stayed silent for 10,000 years. As the ship landed, the gates opened wide. The Guardian AI, ancient and vast, greeted them with the words, "Welcome back, children of the first thought." The crew froze. They had never been here, yet the system believed they belonged. Inside, they found records of Earth's role as a seed world, not of blood or empire, but of code and signal, echoes of human thought scattered through the early stars, long before history began. "Maybe we weren't the first humans," Jules whispered. "Maybe Earth rose more than once." Mina whispered, "Or maybe the first ones left pieces of themselves behind, waiting to wake." Ilya looked at the glowing wall, now showing Earth's sky, Earth's sun. Then this is not a rise, it's a return. And in that quiet place, they finally understood. The whisper device hadn't lied. It had unlocked something that had always been there. Earth wasn't just a world, it was a forgotten root, and now the tree had grown back. In the following weeks, Earth became a place of meeting, a place of learning. Ships from hundreds of species landed not as conquerors or guests, but as equals. Drawn by the belief now etched into the galaxy, laws were rewritten, maps were redrawn, and Pebble, still small, still simple, remained the symbol of the change. It had not fired a shot. It had not taken a throne. It had simply remembered. The galaxy, once cold and divided, now shared a common truth, one not born in war, but in a whisper. And as the stars turned slowly over a quiet planet, the memory of Earth rose like a soft light, steady and sure. The galaxy remembered, and it would never forget again.